Crank sensor quick fix. There are two types of crank sensors, the 2 and the 3 wire type of sensors, and also there are two types of tests. Here are the flash points for the crank sensor testing. 1. The 2-wire crank sensor generates a voltage, and it is quick tested with a test light. 2. The test to the 2-wire sensor. Disconnect the crank sensor, ignition key on, hook the test light to battery power, and tap at the crank sensor signal terminal repeatedly. Do so at both terminals repeatedly. A spark click and injector pulse should be seen at the noise light. 3. The 3-wire sensor has its own circuit with 5 to 8 volts power, ground, and the signal wire. Identify the signal wire using a voltmeter or a diagram. 4. Take the test light and connect to battery ground. With key on, disconnect crank sensor, repeatedly tap on the signal wire. You should hear a spark click and an injector noise pulse. These are the steps to test the crank sensors. These tests test the ECM circuit response. On both tests, you should see a spark click and injector pulse. Crank sensor is the main input to the ECM. If ECM working, then the crank sensor is the only other possibility. There are other ways to test the crank sensor that involve oscilloscope and are more complex. This concludes the crank sensor quick fix.